Hello and welcome back to A Splash of Paint. Now, some of you might remember our next guest from our first ever episode in the series. It's a pleasure to welcome back a classically trained SAA professional artist who will be demonstrating how to paint a stunning oil portrait as part of today's Try Your Hand At project. So settle back and be inspired by the wonderful work of Warren Sealey.
Thanks, Matthew. Okay, today I'm going to paint a portrait. I'm going to use my photograph of Velasquez's head here, and I want to explain how to paint shadows and skin tones and such like. So we'll get straight into this with the shadows. I'm going to use burnt umber here. Thin the paint out just so it runs nice and smoothly. And what I want to do straight away is just break the light patterns from the darks. This is the most important thing. In oil paint, we work from dark to light. This is a little warm, so I'll put some blue in it just to cool it down. And we go a little darker in here. And this painting in the shadows, it creates, straight away, it creates form, and it creates a three-dimensional shadow, really, a shape from breaking. You're breaking the light patterns from the darks, and this is the way to really start this. So I just want to break this up, all these shadows, into one base shadow tone. I'm not looking for variations in tone here. I just want two areas, one area of light, one area of dark. And so we carry on around the face, just breaking this up. I can get some black up here. This is much darker in the hair. And very quickly, you'll see this kind of three-dimensional form start to take shape if it all goes to plan. Okay. I've got to paint like the wind today. Okay, so much darker here. So I want to get this done as quickly as I can. Okay, well that will do for the hair. I will carry on into the face. We'll get all this area into shadow as well. So there we go. So all my dark tones. So most of my dark tones are in place. It's going to need refining, but this is okay. I just cover this area lighter. Okay. Now, okay, well, you can start to see the form developing now. The three-dimensional form is taking shape. I need to... My plan of action really is to just cover the entire canvas. I'm not too worried about getting this really accurate at this point. My way of working is just to get the whole canvas covered with tones of light to dark, And then I take a step back and kind of assess the whole thing, and go for another go, covering the whole thing. So none of this stays as it is. This is like painting a house. You know, it's the first coat, and it all gets assessed and redone. So we just carry on, and I'll put a little background tone in, not just something for the background here, something like that, very quickly. So as I say, accuracy is not really what I'm looking for here. I just want to cover the canvas, and we'll worry about finessing and honing in on accuracy later on. I always find it good to have something, you know, something up there that you can have a look at the whole thing and apprise the whole thing in one good look, and see where you need to make adjustments. That always seems to work best, for me anyway. So that'll do for the background, and we'll get some flesh tones on. Now, making a flesh tone really isn't that difficult. It's a matter of, well, the classic way of making a flesh tone is white, yellow ochre, and vermilion or cadmium red light is the kind of the modern equivalent, really. But I've got vermilion today, and that's it. 3 colours, and this is the way the old painters painted. They had quite limited palettes, and they kept things quite simple, and did a lot with a little, you know. So we start to cover this. I'm going to kind of just put one kind of base colour down. As best I can. Making slight variations here and there, like where I see a little bit more red, like in the cheeks, it's often more reddy in the cheeks. We kind of call those the blood areas. More blood flows to those kind of fatty areas than, say, in the forehead, which are more bony. So a bit more red around the cheeks, around the nose, and well, the nose is quite red actually, so we'll get that going in there. This is quite a red area as well, under the mouth, the chin area. So I'm just going to cover the whole face, and we'll come back later on and put variations in. So let's get this thing covered. Now his lips are quite red. Almost looks like he's wearing lipstick. Now normally what I do for lips is just add red to your basic flesh mixture, because otherwise if you mix a separate lip colour, it tends to look unnatural. So if you just add red, more red to your flesh colour for the lips, it tends to look more natural and just works a little better. So we put some red here. Oh, and I've forgotten my little shadow under the bottom lip here. Okay. Now my flesh tone is looking a little bit weak, so I'm going to strengthen that a little bit. Some alizarin. And we'll just cover the shoulder area. I'm just thinning my paint with a bit of terps just to make it flow more white. So let's just get this thing covered. A little area of shadow here. Now there's some cooler tones, and I'm going to put some black into my flesh mixture for these cooler tones here. Now take a little corner of my flesh mixture here and just make variations into that big pile. So I'm putting black into this little part here so I get a cooler flesh tone. I need more black for this very cool tone here. And cover that. Part here, and maybe a little cooler on the side of the nose. Okay. And I want a nice soft effect here. Now, the whole thing's blocked in. It's quite messy at the moment, but that's okay. Like I said, I want to just block the whole thing in. Now I can take a good stand back and assess what needs to be done. So come back after the break and we'll clean this thing up.
Great talent there, Warren, and we'll look forward to seeing part 2 later on in today's programme. Now, before we take a quick break, it's time to join Malcolm Cudmore as he shows us how, and more importantly when, to use a marl stick.
A very useful tool for artists that really has been around a very, very long time is this thing. It looks a bit like a leather lollipop. It's called a marl stick. And a marl stick is a way of preventing you from getting messy when you're working on fairly large work, but it's also a way of protecting your work from making marks in the wrong place and leaning your hand on things. Essentially it's this. It's a way of safely leaning against your work without actually leaning on the work itself. So for example, this picture was being rendered in charcoal or tinted charcoal, which is a very dry medium. If I inadvertently rest my hand on it, I'm going to smudge it, it's going to go all over the place. So using a marl stick provides me with a really stable surface that I can support my hand on and still exercise exactly the same kind of control that I would do as if I was actually leaning on the surface itself. Now, for most dry media, small work like this, you probably wouldn't want to use it. However, if you're working on a nice large oil painting or something of some substance where leaning against the canvas really would be difficult, this, by the way, comes in 2 halves like this, you really have got a very strong supportive surface that's going to help you work on the largest of work without making a mess of yourself or your painting. So that's a very useful marl stick.
Now it's time for a quick break, folks, but join us in part 3 as we join energetic watercolour artist Hazel Soan, who demonstrates that no painting is ever lost, but simply unfinished. And we go out and about with Fraser Scarfe as he reveals some more of the hidden stories behind his favourite works of art. See you after the break.